Design is democratic art, and everybody seems to be getting more creative.
You don't have to be this person who just makes a painting. You can be a filmmaker, you can be a scene maker.
Singular in our differences, but plural with our potentials.
Everything for me was going to be somehow, futuristic.
I am going to stay with the vision that inspired me as a kid.
I want to turn that experience of the everyday into the magical.
If you really let go of the notions of nostalgia, what would our world be like right now?
Oops. Karim Rashid is a renowned industrial designer responsible for over 3,000 designs from hotels to watches, soap dispensers, and subway stations. His award-winning designs include products for Alessi, Veuve Clicquot, and Melissa. Along with fellow artists Keith Haring and Jean-Michel Basquiat, Kenny Scharf was a main fixture of the East Village scene of the 80s. A self-called pop surrealist, his iconic imagery takes from the worlds of pop culture and animation. He knows how to blur the lines. Guys, thank you for being here, and let's just jump right into it.
Cool. Happy to be here.
Kenny, if you hadn't watched cartoons as a kid, would you still be an artist?
Oh yeah. Your art is shaped a lot by the time you're in and the things you're exposed to, but I kind of feel like you're born an artist. I guess I was the first TV child generation, so you're barraged with all these images, and I made up this term called pop surrealism, which is kind of a used term now, but basically I consider myself surrealist, but there's so much pop imagery that when I'm painting or whatever I'm creating, a lot of these images are coming from inside because at such a young age, being barraged. One of the things adult artists do is keep that vision intact. Yeah. They don't lose it.
I am going to stay with the vision that inspired me as a kid. Exactly. And so, Karim, your father was a painter and a set designer. Was that your inspiration for studying design?
Yeah, probably. Because when we were children, actually, we spent our weekends on television sets. And what was really nice was running around those kind of seamless rooms and go in the costume department and look at and try on all the costumes and watch my father, make models of different television shows and film. So there's no question about it. We were brought up my brother and I, and actually with so many pens and pencils and sketchbooks and books on, designers and artists and fashion designers and all this around the house. So I never even really questioned it. And so when I think back in the 60s, I was a kid in the 60s going to Expo 67 and all this stuff. And that period was fantastic because it was this kind of utopian vision of this idea that we're all gonna, by this point, 2013, we're all gonna be living on another planet, And there was so much kind of a collective thinking about the future and a positivism about the future.
What is the first object or building that inspired you?
I would have to say it's 1967, I was 7, and it was Expo Montreal. And there was a pavilion by Buckminster Fuller called the Geodesic Dome. And that was the American pavilion, and in it was was all this fantastic technology. And the first, I think, product I did, which actually that I saw that I was interested in designing product, was a vacuum cleaner that could run and vacuum by itself.
Roomba.
Yeah, which is
one of my favorite objects I have in my house.
Okay, so this is 67, imagine. To look at that dome and just go, wow, this is amazing,
Yeah.
And it also, I think, that say, you know what, we can do anything in this world we want. If we have imagination, we can make it happen. That was the thought at that moment, was I can do something and make this kind of a futurism that I would love to live in.
Kenny, in your formative years, do you think that art school taught you something that you would not have learned on your own?
I think that the most that I learned from art school was the kids that I connected with at art school. I was kind of hungry for learning, actually, how do you do this and how do you do that? And it was kind of lacking. So the thing that I think I got out of school the most was who I met.
How did you become roommates with Keith Haring?
Well, Keith and I were friends from SVA, and I was living in some crazy loft near Bryant Park, and the roommate I had freaked out and decided to kick me out because I guess my personality was too much, or I was making too much art or something. I don't remember exactly. But they tried to get me kicked out, and I came home one day and I said, someone's leaving here, but it's not me. And then he left, and I had this loft, like 2 stories.
Wait. You said to him, someone's leaving today.
Yeah.
And it's not me.
Exactly.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Keith was living in this weird, like, rooming house. He shared a room with like 5 old men and had a bathroom in the hall. And I was just like, got on the phone, like, Keith, get over here. I got a huge place. So there he was. And it was about a week or 2 after he moved into in the place that he started doing his subway drawings.
Wow.
So it kind of took off really big for him.
Wow.
Did you guys ever collaborate? Did you ever do any work together?
Funny that the only collaboration we ever did was in the street, but nothing very formal, like we're gonna do this together. It just kind of happened.
Yeah.
How do you see his legacy?
Well, you know, he was a real good friend of mine, and even though we were the same age, I always kind of looked to him. He really had it together. He was so focused, and I just felt like every move that I made, I had to like ask him, like, what do you think I should do? And he was like, he was a lot older than me in certain ways. And I was with him, you know, when he was on his deathbed. And I remember he was very, very agitated. And I kind of held him. I don't even think he had his eyes open. And I said, you can just relax, and you know, everything you've done is just going to keep going. You're just going to continue.
Wow.
And I felt his whole body, everything just relax. And I meant it, obviously. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, he's just growing and growing, and he started something really big.
What about Warhol? Like Andy, what role did he play in your life? What role did you play in his life?
He played a big role in my life. I mean, he was the reason why I moved to New York. I knew that the factory and that whole 60s vibe was over. This was the late 70s. Mm-hmm. And basically, when I met my group of friends, we emulated Warhol in a big way.
From like a social life viewpoint, or you mean the actual work, or you mean all of the above?
The major thing, besides, I mean, I love looking at the things that he made. They still have so much power and they're so fresh looking. But I think he opened the door of what it meant to be an artist. Because before him, let's say Dali and Duchamp also did the same thing, but Warhol really took it to a place that I connected to. And I was like, what is it? What is your role as an artist? You don't have to be this person who just makes a painting and then shows your painting. You can be this. You can be a filmmaker. You can be a scene maker. It's a much bigger picture. So that's really what got me really excited.
What is a pluralist?
Well, a pluralist, I think, is just a creative person who's moving in different disciplines. So, you know, if I was a industrial designer, I would be more or less doing product design, you know. I wouldn't be doing furniture. I do furniture and the lighting, or I wouldn't be doing interiors or architecture or fashion. Whatever I feel I want to do, I try. Whether I'm good at it or not, I kind of like attempt it.
So we should strive to be singular in our differences, but plural with our potentials.
Yeah, for our contributions. And I like that. Beautiful. But I think that also, interestingly enough, times changed too, because when I got into design, everything was so specialized. You know, when I was going to university, for example, I didn't even know design as a profession really existed. I thought I had to study architecture. And it was these like limited like windows. Now all of a sudden, as you and I, and we cross boundaries and we end up doing things for different companies and different types of projects and all this sort of stuff, it's completely open for everybody to have this kind of notion of pluralism. I think when I was young, the people I looked up to that were pluralists, which is funny that you mentioned the whole Andy Warhol thing. Andy Warhol was like one of my, I wanted to emulate my life around a little bit like what he did, but more of a Warholian idea of a factory of design rather than, an art. Mm-hmm. But this idea that I love, the idea that he was doing film and printmaking and all the stuff, all the boundaries. And that he's trying to make the art accessible, which I loved, all that sort of stuff. It was Le Corbusier, as the architect. I mean, the guy was a great painter. He designed clothes. I think the one probably I looked up to the most was my father, because he not only was a painter and a set designer, but he would do things like, he loved making clothes for my mom. So he would like pull out the sewing machine, and on Sunday morning he'd sketch dresses. And then he would like get the fabric, cut it, and sew it, and then at night my parents would go out and she's wearing the dress.
That's really cool.
And
No
when
way.
when you're 8, 9 years old, you look up like, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. Pretty romantic,
cool.
actually.
It's romantic, but it says a lot for like the mind and potential.
Yeah.
Kenny, is there any irony in your stated obsession with the dangers of consumerism? Because it made you a lot of money.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have,
And by the way, I'm not attacking you.
No, don't worry.
I mean,
I'm kind of a hypocrite. Like, for instance, I see what mass crazy consumerism has done to our world and is continuing to,
Sure.
yet I'm a part of it.
sure.
I fly in planes, I drive cars, I consume.
Yeah.
I'm not out of this society, I'm part of the society. So I have this, intense love for big American cars, with the fins and all that 50 stuff, yet that is kind of what led to global warming. Here we are. So it's a love-hate thing. Basically what I'm trying to tell people is like, I'm not perfect.
Right.
It's just that we need to be conscious.
Sure.
So I think
You're a reporter.
being conscious is like a very big step. I drive a car, and I just said I go in a plane. Well, every time I do, I'm thinking I'm using gas.
Right.
Where does this gas come from, and what happens to it? I think about that stuff all the time.
Sure.
But I still do it.
Sure.
I do have this kind of dichotomy, something that I realize is causing our downfall, but at the same time, I love that, consumerism. When you take a product and you make it so enticing, even though you don't, like, if the ultimate thing is like almost like an art piece, it's like you don't need this thing, but you make it so great and people want it. So I think that's part of what I'm guilty of.
Well, Karim, you've estimated that we encountered 520.
Am I supposed to be distracted?
No.
Okay.
Everything's fine. You've estimated that we encounter 520 designed objects each day.
Yeah. Well, objects, just objects.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Design, not design.
Yeah, objects.
Products, just things we touch.
Yeah. Things we touch. But what does that entail?
The second you wake up, you may touch your eyeglasses, radio, remote control, doorknob, faucets, toilet, and it just goes on and on and on. So we're interacting with all these physical things daily.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
To
Well,
you, what does
yeah.
that mean to humanity?
Yeah.
You feel like we're getting to a place where like we're using
Where
less.
that number can decrease, yeah.
Right.
This is how I critique the world in a way a lot of times. Is design has bifurcated itself a little bit from real performance. And what I mean by that is like style gets in the way a lot, So for example, I'm designing, faucets and bathtub and sink, And if you go to a trade show and you see the stuff out, right? And the Italians and the Germans, those are a lot of companies I work with, beautiful things. I mean, things in the last 10 years have changed drastically. It's amazing actually what's happened with the physical world. Like all of a sudden everything is getting very contemporary and really beautiful. At the same time, beautiful, but I don't know, like questionable. Like they're just caught up with a certain trend,
or a certain style, and forgetting about this kind of notion of use, you know? So I look at a faucet that's like a perfect stainless steel slab, right? You know, we can all look at that in a picture and go, wow, that's a nice thing. And then you got to like use it, and you're shaving beside it, and it's just like dangerous corners and all this sort of stuff. So my critique of this idea of physical, navigating, all of us moving through the physical world, is to try to make a softer and more comfortable and more engaging world. And with that said, obviously more poetic too and all that. It's not just about performance. It's it has to be emotional. If you think about, 2013, if you really let go of the notions of nostalgia and all of these strange ideas, what would our world be like right now? But I guess I'm talking about just objects.
Was there a naked woman who just served us water? That was interesting.
I didn't see that. Did
Okay.
you? Oh. But the question is, I was just talking about going back about the objects, right? Just to tell you a really quick story. I was working with Boeing many, many years ago. We were going to do airline seats, chairs. And I'm sitting in my office for 8 hours. And I get out of my chair, and I'm in an Aaron chair, by Herman Miller, when it just came out, that chair. Right? I get up every day out of my office, and I never think about being uncomfortable. Then I'm in an airplane, and when I'm in economy, it's like within 20 minutes, everything starts to hurt. There's no lumbar support. It's really weird. It's very hard bottom. And you think to yourself, well, what's going on here? Well, that airline's chair is an old archetype. And even though we supposedly are making improvements on it, we just keep repeating the same thing. So you and I, when we look and go, oh, that's an airline seat. Well, why not take the Aaron chair and stick it in the airplane?
Right.
But that's not the way the world works for some reason. The way the world works is full of these old archetypes that we just keep repeating over. Eventually they die, some of them.
Of course.
But we're not afraid of new technology. This is what I've been thinking about a lot lately. 375,000 apps for iTunes. Like, it's just crazy number of apps. 375,000? What the hell do they all do, right? So there's a market for that, I guess. People are buying them. I don't know what's going on. So we're not afraid of now all of a sudden. Ever since the iPod in 2000 came out, and you could put that, whatever gigs, 40 gigs in your pocket, the world changed. It's amazing. It's like we just like technology. We'll try it. If it gives us a better experience, we keep it. But physical world is kind of like I look at this table. Like, look how far apart we are. I talk about human condition. It's like, when I talk to people, I want to be like that close, right? It's like this stuff is not designed for the time we live in anymore. It's all off. It's completely.
Okay, let's get rid of it.
It's completely.
Throw it away.
And it's a massive piece of material. It's a huge chunk of wood. And I think about that a lot now when I design. I think about, that we used to think that luxury was, like a marble table, big heavy thing.
That's still the case in cars.
Yeah, sure. And this idea of what was luxury, precious stones and diamonds and, heavy gold.
Heavy means there's a lot in there.
Yeah, this table probably should be something super lightweight and really elegant and really, comfortable.
He doesn't like this table.
Since I walked in.
I'm going to go back to you, Kenny, for a second. Like, with all of your work being in museums and galleries, why are you so obsessed with, public art?
Well, I think it's part of who I am. I really have this thing against elitism. I really believe that the opportunity for ideas, inspiration, should be for everyone, and not only for the sacred few people who have been able to go to the university and this and this and that. That if you can touch and inspire people that normally wouldn't have that opportunity, well, I'm very excited about that. There's so much boringness in the world that I think part of my drive is to make it less boring.
How do you feel about the public, and what's your connection to the public?
I would say design is democratic art.
Right.
Which means everybody gets to, if you do something that's really inspiring and pleasurable and interesting, everybody, at least the majority, not everybody, majority can engage it, use it, and all that sort of stuff. I almost feel like I believe in a copyright-free world. Like, a lot of my work is being copied, and I never have an issue with it whatsoever.
Right.
And I don't mind. Of course, the companies I design for, of course, it's different because there's probably some, money to be lost there. But I'm kind of, a lot of times, not only flattered, but I just feel like it's the world we live in now. And everybody seems to be getting more creative, which is kind of the world I want anyway. I love that idea that everybody can be expressive and all that, and people can think differently.
I envy you in some ways, because I've always been very excited and driven about design. And when you were talking about when you pick up the phone and everything you do in your daily life has all these actions with objects.
Yeah.
So that hit me because I started this thing back in late 70s, early 80s called customization, where I thought that everything out there design-wise was really, really boring. TVs, phones, blenders. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and personally change the surface of this object. So when I pick up the phone and dial my everyday boring thing that we do, I want to turn that experience and transform the experience of the everyday into, let's say, the magical. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that the design has the power to do. For instance, like I see designs from the 50s, early 60s, that's what I'm so turned on by. They have a fantasy in them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You look at the thing and wow, somebody had some other idea besides a function that it was fantasy. We're going to outer space here, and so you're thinking about outer space when you're driving your, car with the fins, or you're a rocket. Mm. It's all about the elevation of the mundane.
Right.
So
right.
I think what you're doing and actually making it happen in a larger way is very exciting.
What do you consider your best piece of work and why?
It's a tough question, and it's a question that one doesn't want to admit to, because I'm always thinking about my future work and the things I'm doing now. I guess if there's something that represents what I stand for to a point, I would have to say maybe I did a chair called the O chair for Umbra, which is actually still produced in Buffalo. I did that in '97. What's successful about it, and what I learned about why it's successful, is you can buy it at mass shops, like container stores, people like that, for like $39. And it was part of that notion of trying to do something that's super designed, really comfortable, it's 100% sustainable. I did everything right, because usually when you do a project, you kind of, maybe 80% of it got right, and 75. That chair, I think, was holistically successful in that regard. So it stands for me too, because it's democratic, and it's contemporary, and it's interesting, and it's fun, and it's quite human. It's like a nice object. I would have to say the O chair, I guess. I don't want to say anything, but I have to say something. So.
Yeah.
Over to you, Kenny.
Well, that question is, I kind of go along with him. It's like, well...
Me too.
What do you... So I'll have to say, I'm always most excited about what either I'm working on at the moment or what I just finished. So I just finished a few days ago a big mural in LA.
Wow.
And I'm really excited about it, and I feel like I'm all, as an artist and designer, or what artists, you're always, your last thing, you're always trying to top yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So my answer would be that mural.
I want to thank you both, Karim and Kenny. This was cool, man. Sometimes it was like awesome to just sort of sit back and watch you guys like trade ideas where things might be slightly different, but to like be open to the other person's perspective, because that is what
I think we share a lot of similar.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today was a treat, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seriously, I'm walking away with a PhD right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was trained to be able to create an illusion. I would draw vases of flowers from the time that I was a child.
Looking at those paintings, you probably see the promise in that child's eyes.
But I absolutely had no idea the power of art, what art could be.
That's the most important thing.
The art's in you. I mean, it happens in you. It's about your possibilities, your future.
That should be like people's daily affirmation.
In the end, you really don't care about objects. You care about people. And that's really kind of the highest state that art can take you to.
Pharrell Williams here.
Hi, I'm Joy Bryant,
I'm Eric Ripper.
I'm Tom Colicchio.
I'm Dr. Frank Lipman, the host of On the Table,
the host of Across the Board,
Host of ARTST Talk.
Host of Hooked Up.
host of the show Be Well Week, Be Well Weekend on the Reserve channel.
It's only on Reserve.
Did you know that you can follow my show on social media sites like Facebook?
Follow us on Twitter.
If you're a fan of my show, hit the like button.
All of the above.
Share me with your friends.
Treat yourself. Check out a new episode of my show, Hooked Up.
And if you want to leave comments, feedbacks, ideas, whatever, love to hear from you. Leave a comment.
And if you don't want to miss the show, be sure to subscribe.
The one that's like down here, or is it here? Somewhere down here.
Thanks for watching the Reserve channel.
Only on YouTube. Throw caution to the wind and ask yourself what rules.